Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Tawantinsuyu. So this is Tawantinsuyu, set up as a two-player game. To start with, everyone gets 8 cards. They put 5 of their cards on the table and get the stuff that's on the bottom of the card, and then the other 3 cards become theirs. That's a closed hand. I will, for the moment, for purposes of this video and the next one, play with those cards flipped over so everyone can see what we're looking at. You will start with 2 stone, and that is the only resource that you have at the beginning. Each card that you choose will change what resources you have and what other things you can gain. So realistically, this game is split into 2 portions of choice. You can either place one of your meeples onto the board, or you can move your priest 1 or 2 spots around that little place at the top. You'll always go in the same directions as marked by those arrows. When you place your meeple onto this area, you'll place it onto one of the symbols. If you place it next to, let's say there, if I place that there, that is next to this meeple. They count against each other. So what you would get is 1 action for the one that's been placed, plus an extra action for the one that's placed next to. If I had another white one here, I would have 3 actions. The different colored meeples are giving you different bonuses depending on, obviously, their color. So other than the placing next to the other guy, you get some other bonus. So by placing a white guy, you would get an extra one of these cards, which are these cards. And you can also pay a potato to get an extra action. So with his placement, if he paid a potato, instead of getting 2 actions, he would now have 3 actions. Those actions must be split evenly between the 3 possible actions. So the actions are this one, or this one. So whatever those symbols are that surround your guy, your meeple, that is the actions that you can do. So with 2 actions, he can take 3 potatoes and build one of these buildings, or he could take 6 potatoes. That's with 2 actions. With 3, he would have to take 6 potatoes and build a building. If he had 4, he would take 6 potatoes and build a building, and then he could choose between taking another 3 potatoes or building another building. These are the buildings, by the way, so your choices are just there and they go in front of you. If you were to place a yellow guy, the white ones are known as priests, by the way, the yellow ones are known as couriers, it's going to decrease his payment cost. So if he places this here, he would normally have to pay 1 food, so a potato or corn. The reason he would have to pay a potato or corn is because his high priest is just here. So the space directly in front of the high priest is free. The space next to the high priest costs 1 corn or 1 potato. And the space that's 1 further around would cost 2 potato or corn. If he were to venture down further, he's going to pay 2 food to go into this area and 5 food to go into this area. If there's a set of stairs, that reduces the amount of food by 2. So blue could place in here without having to pay any food because his high priest is facing that direction. If his high priest was facing this direction and he wished to play there, it would cost him 1 food for being around, 1 from his high priest, and then this would take away 2 of the food costs to place down in this space. So it would only cost him 1 food for being around 1 from where his high priest is. If that happened to be the other player, you can still use it. The other player, however, would get 1 point for you using their stairs. So in essence, if he wished to place a guy here, it would cost him 2 food for being 2 around from his high priest, plus another 5 food for being on the bottom of the sections. So it would cost him 7 food in total to be able to actually play in that space while his high priest is facing this direction. So by placing a courier or yellow guy, he's decreasing the food cost by 1. So by placing it here, it would normally cost 1 food. but it costs none because he's placed a courier. If this was the first worker in a section, so if this green one wasn't there, if he's the first worker in a section, he would get an extra action for that placement. So he would have 2 actions rather than just the one. With the setup as it is, it's just 1. By the way, these guys that are preset are only preset in the 2-player game. If you're in a 3 or 4-player game, you don't preset anyone. The blue guy is known as an architect. If the blue guy is placed on top of a blue space, he would get an extra action. So he's got 2 actions at the moment. If he's placed there, he would only have the 1 action. The same goes for the green guy. If the green guy is placed on a green space, he gets 2 actions. On a non-green space, he'd only get the 1. And if he were to place a red guy, they're known as warriors. So if he places him there, what he gets to do is take one of the adjacent guys, not a warrior. So if he places it there, which is next to another warrior, he doesn't get to take that one. But placing it there, he can take this one or this one back. And then on a future turn, he might be able to play again onto that same spot. He also gets one of these warrior cards. The way to use warrior cards is going to be explained later when we get up to this space, but you can at any time turn that card in for the stuff that's on the bottom of the card. So in this case, 1 point. That's the basics of the different colored guys. Now you'll notice that I was placing those guys on different symbols. Those symbols are in direct reference to these cards. So in order for me to place this guy on this symbol, I would need to play this card. I would get the stuff that's on the bottom of the card for placing it, and I can take that stuff at any time, so I can take it now or I can take it at the end. So if you happen to have a card which would cost you to gain the thing, you may need to collect stuff to be able to pay for the thing. You will get a stone for that as well, by the way. So a stone, but if he doesn't have any potatoes, if he wishes to take one of these, he might take those potatoes in to be able to use them for payment of that. Once you play a card, so he plays that card, takes 3 of the potatoes in, that guy would get 2 actions, so he might take 2 stone as this part of the action, and he might take that as the second part of his action, which might be that, which would cost him a stone and a potato, and that's his turn. That's the reality of it. Every now and then you'll do something that will enable you to take more cards. Cards that are available are either the face down cards or any of these face up cards. Once this lineup gets to 4 in a 2-player game, 5 in a 3-player game, or 6 in a 4-player game, you would leave the last one. So let's say, for example, this card was being played. That one would stay at the end of your turn. These cards would then get shuffled back into the deck, and that becomes the first card available within that deck when you're drawing. Now, the other thing that you may wish to do if you don't have the symbol of the spot that you wish to use is you could spend a gold to place your meeple on the board if that symbol wasn't available there. You don't want to do that too often because gold can also stand in for any of the other resources. So if you need other resources, you can spend gold on it. So it's worthwhile kind of hanging on to the gold if you're able to. But that might get you out of a jam with, oh, I've only got these 3 symbols, but I really want that specific spot. So what do each of the symbols mean? This means get 3 potatoes, get 2 stone, get 2 corn, and that gives you 1 gold as well. That's the taking the resource in. This one is building stairs. It costs you 3 stone to build stairs. When you build the stairs, you immediately get 4 points. And then you also receive 1 corn and 2 potatoes. When someone builds this set of stairs, the owner of this set will also get an extra 2 points. That was that marker. This symbol here means you're building a building, and the cost is in the top right hand corner, and you'll gain that whenever you do something that has that symbol, which is this one just here. So if you did this action, you would get the benefit of 1 of your buildings. So that number 1 is telling you to just take the benefit of 1 building. When you take this, it's talking about these God tokens up the top. You're looking at the symbol on the God token from whichever spot you've used. So if he uses that one to take this God token, it will cost him 3 stone to get the small one. So he would take that. That would give him 3 points straight away. Or it would cost him 3 stone and 2 gold to take the big god token, which would get him 9 points straight away. And that god token would just live in his stuff until it is used. I'll talk about using that in a moment. This is replaced, by the way, at the end of the player's turn. So if multiples of them are taken, it's just the choice of the 4 that are there at the beginning of the turn. You don't get the extras to choose from. This symbol is talking about these. So whenever you see this symbol or you do that symbol, you would take the top 3. So the top one we can see, we know what that is. And these are the next 2 down. This is going to cost to put them into your setup. So it will cost you 1 corn to take 1 of these, 3 corn to take 2 of them, 6 corn to take 3 of them. What you're trying to do is match the symbol. So he might take that one. Now these symbols are matched. That costs him 1 corn to do so. He doesn't have any more corn, so he can't get any more of these. If, however, he did have more corn, he could throw that on the end, because they are matching, or he could throw it at this end because the potatoes are matching. It is legal to place that one. It just means he's not going to get any benefit from this section of the tapestry. What is not legal is now placing this tapestry into this setup, simply because that pattern is already there. So you're trying to get different patterns within the setup. You can still purchase that one. You just need to start a new tapestry with it. There are points for the length of that tapestry at the end of the game. So if you can get 7 different tiles into your tapestry, that will give you 21 points at the end of the game. With 3, it's only giving you 3 points at game's end. If you manage to get 4 in there, it'll be 6 points. So the more you can get in there, obviously the better off your points at the end of the game are going to be. If he got the merchant, that now enables him to get the stuff that is on his tapestries, the matching points. So with this setup, he would get 3 potatoes, and this would enable him to spend a gold to move up on this track 1. That gets him 2 points at the end of the section of game, but right away he would get what is pictured on this side, which is 1 potato and 1 more card. The other symbol that I haven't talked about yet is training, which is this one. And it's basically, you can look at 2 cards because there's an I and 2, and you're choosing one of those cards. Notice there are 2 people on this one and 1 on this. It's actually more valuable to take that one. So he might hang on to that one. For the training, that then goes into the discard pile. Remembering, of course, you can just get rid of this card to get the resource on the bottom at any point. So that's all the stuff that goes into the basics of this. Let's now look at the other option you have on your turn. What you can do is move your marker 1 or 2 spots further around the top section. It doesn't matter if you're standing on the same spot as someone else, that's perfectly legal. So let's talk through what each of the things are. This one is the war section. You're playing any number of these cards out of your hand, face up. What everyone at the table is going to get to do that at the same time. Before that happens, however, the person who has gone onto the spot will select one of these 4 elements. They'll select one of the workers from either end of the village, so maybe that one, and place it onto the square next to the line of points. Now, what this is saying is you will need to flip 1 card over to get that benefit. You will need to place 1 card face up to get this benefit. You need to place 3 warriors, so there's 2 on that card. If he had another card, he could go to here to get that benefit. And that's the same with each of the tracks. Everyone will choose one of their things with whatever their ability is. So if they had 7 warriors on their cards, they could get this benefit, which is 2 of these. But he's only got 2, so he might go there, which gives him 1 of these, which he can't place anywhere, but he can start a new line with it, and 1 of these. Everyone else also does the same thing. So he only has 1 guy, which means he can go here or here. he might go there. So his guy is flipped over face down, but he gets 2 extra cards in. Because blue was the player who actually caused this to happen, he now gets to place another one. He could go here again because he has one guy face up, or he could choose to flip that down to place that in that location to get another 2 of these cards. What is happening is the player who has their marker the furthest that direction to the right, when we get to the end of the section, there are 3 sections in the game, by the way. When we get to the end of the section, the player furthest to the right will get however many points there are for meeples here. So at the moment, he would get 1 point at the end of the section of the game. If there were 2, he would get 2 points. If he would go here, that allows him to flip cards face up. So he's got this one face down. These ones may have been face down as well. I'll talk about how they go face down in a moment. But the person who has caused this to happen would get 1 flip for free. Then if, let's say these ones were down as well, he could spend 1 corn or potato to flip each of these back over. This player could do the same, but he's only allowed to spend corn to flip his cards over. So he might spend that 1 corn and flip that 1 back over. This spot is known as the offering. And what you're allowed to do when you go to the offering is you can spend 2, 4, or 6 corn. So let's just imagine he had some corn to start with. So he could spend 4 corn to move 2 spots forward on the temple track. He would gain the stuff that is there straight away. So he would get both the, I can look at both the things and take one of the cards. It goes face down. And get a guy from that portion of the board. By the way, any guys that come from here are replaced immediately. So there's always 4 available no matter what you're doing. Other players may spend 3 corn to move 1 step on that track. So this player might wish to spend his 3 corn to push him forward, and that also gets him 1 more of these cards and a potato. Moving on, at this point, we get to produce. So because this player was the person who caused the produce action to happen, everyone is going to be able to produce, by the way, off these cards. So he can take 3 points and a corn or a potato, and he can take 2 stone. Both of those cards would get flipped over. Now, because he's the person who caused the produce action to happen, he can now flip one of the cards back over. If this is what it looked like at the beginning of that produce action, he could flip that over, take all the stuff, and then flip them face down. But what that means is whenever this action happens, if that's what his board looks like, the only one he's up to action is this one, because that's the one that's face up. Oh, sorry, I do apologize, I've been moving the wrong guy. Okay, everyone else can produce what is on their cards, but they don't get the chance to flip things back over. And this point is called worship. If this player had these 2 statues at this point, he could play both of them. Anyone else can play just one of them. And what that allows you to do is if you discard a large statue, you can move 3 spots forward. If you discard a small, you can move 1 spot forward. And you get all the benefit of the spots that you've passed. So he would gain in 2 gold, 2 stone, 1 of these cards, and 1 of these cards. The other player could also do the same, passing this one in, moving forward, and taking 1 of 2 cards that were presented to him. Those gods go back into the box so they won't be used again. Now, when you do a secondary action, which this area of the board is, you don't actually have to do those specific things. You could do a secondary action to gain some other stuff. Now bear in mind that when you do secondary action, you get two things. So he's just done one of those things. He could also take two of these God cards into his pile. He could take two of these training cards, choose one and get rid of the other. He could choose one of these workers from that spot and you immediately replace it. Now that's all the stuff that's available on your turn. At the end of your turn, you can have a maximum of 2 meeples. So because he's just picked up a third one, he's actually got 2 me, so he would have to get rid of one of those meeples. So that last action wasn't actually really useful to him. He gets to only do 2 of those actions, so he wouldn't have chosen that one because he has 2 meeples already. If at some point he's able to pick up a third meeple because of something someone else has done, then there's no problem with him having 3. But at the end of his turn, so right now, the most he can have is 2. Any extras would go back to the box. Let's say he did just have 1. The other thing he could do right at this point, and this is available to every player at the end of their turn, is you can spend 1 potato to take this meeple. Or he could spend 1 corn to take this meeple. It's really up to him. He'll spend the potato. And what happens is when we get to the end of this line of meeples, so say all of these have been gone, they're on the board, this guy takes that last one, so he spends a potato to take the last one. Because there's no more meeples in that space, he would get this, showing that he was the one who took that last meeple. Everyone else at the table would have 1 more turn, and then when it gets back to this person's turn, we would go into what's known as the festival scoring. So things that happen in the festival scoring is, first up, you would get all the stuff that's on your carpet, so he would be able to trade in a gold to move 1 forward on that track. He would get another 3 potatoes. Then everyone would receive the victory points depending on where they are on that track. So blue would get 13 points, purple would get 3 for their current positions. Then whoever has the most markers in each corner would get the number of points. So blue would get 1 more point. You then need to pay 1 potato for every card that's in your hand. In a regular game, you wouldn't get this many cards in your hand, by the way, but he has 10 cards in his hand, so he would have to pay 10 potatoes. He only has 5 potatoes, so he has to pay those 5 potatoes, but then it costs him another 2 points per extra card. So he's actually losing 10 points. At this point, if you're on the 3rd one of these festivals, you would jump to the final scoring. If it's the 1st or 2nd, then you continue on the way that we're going. So he would return that next to the game board again. We would draw more villagers out of the bag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice that with 3-player game we get 6. For a 4-player game we'd have 8. And then we proceed to the festival card draw stage, which is basically getting more cards. If you're in a 4-player game, the player who has the least victory points would get 2 cards, as would the player with the second least, and the top 2 players would get 1 card. On a 3-player game, the bottom 2 players would get 2 cards, the top player would get 1 card, and on a 2-player game, the lower player gets 2 cards and the higher player gets 1. Then in turn order, you can spend up to 3 of these cards to get the stuff on the bottom, just like at the beginning. If you're on a 2-player game, at the end of the first festival, you'll also draw meeples to put them over each of the spots on this 2nd level down. Once that's happened, then replace all the buildings in the market and continue on with the game. If this was the 3rd festival, so you're going into end game scoring now, what you're looking for is the length of this will give you points. The longer it is, the more points. So if you can get all 7 pieces into the length of that, it's 21 points. Where it's sitting at the moment, it's only worth 3 points. If a player has reached one of the top 4 steps over there, so blue would get another 12 points. Purple is not getting any points. 2 points per face-up building. So this one would get 2 points, that one's worth nothing. I would have needed to flip that over to get another 2 points out of that. 1 point per god card in the hand, so that's worth 1 point per card. 1 point per face-up army card. 1 point per leftover worker, so he's got another 2 points just there. And 1 point for each gold in the supply. And that is everything. Whoever has the highest point is the winner of the game. I think that is everything with the rules. Please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.